Every woman wanted his heart. But the widowed millionaire walked past them all and said this to the waitress. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you pass out champagne with that expression on your face." Sophia Morales froze, her tray of crystal flutes suddenly feeling heavier. The man standing before her wasn't just any guest. This was Gabriel Sterling himself, the host of tonight's charity gala. Every woman in the ballroom had been trying to catch his attention all evening, and here he was, talking to her. "Excuse me?" Sophia managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Gabriel's grey eyes studied her face with unexpected intensity. "You look like you're about to cry. The guests will think there's something wrong with the champagne." Heat rushed to Sophia's cheeks. She'd been thinking about her overdue rent when he approached, and apparently her worry had shown. "I'm fine, Mr. Sterling, just focused on my work." "Gabriel, and no, you're not fine." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Trust me, I know what not fine looks like." Around them, the party continued in full swing. Manhattan's elite sipped champagne and bid on auction items, all while stealing glances at their elusive host. Victoria Ashworth, draped in designer silk, had been circling Gabriel all evening like a beautiful predator. "You should get back to your guests," Sophia said, forcing a professional smile. "I'm sure there are important people waiting to talk to you." Important people. Gabriel's laugh was hollow. "Do you know what this party is for? Cancer research, in memory of your wife." Something flickered across his face, pain so raw that Sophia instinctively took a step forward. Elena would have hated this circus. All these people pretending to care about the cause just to network and gossip. Sophia shouldn't engage. She was staff. He was the host, and she needed this job. But something in his voice made her forget the rules. Then why have it? Because guilt makes you do stupid things. Gabriel ran a hand through his dark hair. Because 18 months later, everyone expects you to be over it and moving on. Because Marcus, that's my business partner, thinks I need to get out more. Do you need to get out more? Gabriel's smile was bitter. According to half the women here, what I need is a new wife. According to my therapist, what I need is to stop feeling guilty for being alive. According to my lawyer, what I need is to be seen supporting the charity so donors keep writing checks. Sophia shifted the tray to one hand. "What do you think you need?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. For a moment, the polished businessman facade cracked, revealing something vulnerable underneath. "I think I need to disappear." Before Sophia could respond, a hand landed on Gabriel's shoulder. Marcus Chen appeared beside them, his expression carefully neutral but his eyes concerned. "Gabriel, the Hartwell Foundation wants to discuss their matching grant. They've been waiting." Gabriel's mask slipped back into place so smoothly that Sophia almost wondered if she'd imagined the previous moment of honesty. "Of course they do." Gabriel turned back to Sophia. "Thank you for the conversation, Miss Morales, Sophia Morales." "Sophia." He said her name like he was testing how it felt. "Try to smile. The champagne isn't that bad." As Marcus steered Gabriel away toward a group of distinguished-looking donors, Sophia watched them go. She'd been working catering jobs for 3 years to pay for grad school, and she'd served plenty of wealthy, powerful men. Most barely acknowledged her existence. None had ever asked what she thought they needed. "Girl, you better be careful." Sophia turned to find her co-worker Janet beside her, refilling champagne flutes with practiced efficiency. "What do you mean?" "Rich widower, pretty waitress. I've seen this movie. It doesn't end well for girls like us." He was just being polite. "Honey, polite is thank you and excuse me." Just what he was doing was flirting, and half the women in this room saw it. Sophia glanced around, and sure enough, several pairs of eyes were watching her with varying degrees of curiosity and hostility. Victoria Ashworth's gaze was particularly cold. "I should get back to work." "Yes, you should." "And Sophia, whatever sob story he gave you, remember, men like that don't actually want to be saved. They just want to feel better about themselves." For the next hour, Sophia focused on her job, refilling drinks and clearing plates. But she found herself stealing glances at Gabriel as he worked the room. Marcus stayed close, clearly running interference, while Gabriel smiled and shook hands and said all the right things. To everyone else, he probably looked like the perfect host. But Sophia had seen behind the mask, even if only for a moment. She recognized the signs because she wore them herself. The careful smile that never reached the eyes, the way he held himself slightly apart even in conversation, the exhaustion that came from performing happiness when you felt anything but. It was nearly midnight when she heard the sound. Sophia was in the service hallway outside Gabriel's private study, stacking empty serving trays, when she heard harsh, ragged breathing coming from behind the partially open door. She should have kept walking, should have minded her own business. Instead, she pushed the door open just enough to see Gabriel sitting on the floor behind his desk, his head in his hands, his whole body shaking. "Mr. Sterling?" His head snapped up, eyes wide with panic and embarrassment. "I'm fine. You should go." Sophia set down her tray and stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "You're having a panic attack." I said I'm fine. "And I said you're having a panic attack. I'm getting my PhD in psychology. I know the signs." Gabriel started to stand, but his legs were unsteady. Sophia moved quickly, kneeling beside him without getting too close. "Breathe with me, okay? In for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't. Yes, you can. In for 4. Focus on my voice. You're safe. This will pass." For several minutes they breathed together in the quiet study. Gradually, Gabriel's breathing steadied and his color returned to normal. "Better?" Gabriel nodded, not meeting her eyes. "Thank you. I haven't had one that bad in months." "What triggered it?" "Mrs. Hartwell." Gabriel's voice was hoarse. "She told me Elena would be so proud of what I'm doing, carrying on her legacy. She meant well, but Elena wasn't about charity galas and tax deductions. No, she was about actual people. She volunteered at a free clinic in Queens. She tutored kids whose parents couldn't afford help. She would have hated all this pretense." Sophia settled back on her heels. "My family came here from El Salvador when I was 12. We had nothing. People like Elena, they're the reason we survived those first few years. You understand then? I understand survivor's guilt. I understand feeling like you don't deserve to be happy when other people didn't make it. I understand using work to avoid dealing with the pain." Gabriel finally looked at her, really looked at her. "How do you know all that?" "Because I live it every day. My cousins didn't make it out. My grandmother died waiting for us to save enough money to bring her here. I got a full scholarship to Columbia, while my brother works 2 jobs to stay in community college. Why me? Why did I get lucky when they didn't?" The study was quiet, except for the distant sounds of the party winding down. Gabriel studied her face in the lamplight. "What's your dissertation on?" "Trauma recovery in immigrant communities. Turns out personal experience makes for compelling research." A soft knock interrupted them. "Gabriel?" Marcus's voice came through the door. "The last guests are leaving. You need to say goodbye." Gabriel stood, straightening his tie and smoothing his hair. The transformation back to polished host was swift, but Sophia caught the moment of reluctance. "I have to go." "I know." Gabriel paused at the door. "Sofia Morales from El Salvador, getting her PhD in psychology and working catering jobs to pay for it. That's me. Thank you for tonight, for understanding." Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving Sophia alone in the study with the lingering scent of his cologne and the strange feeling that something important had just happened, though she couldn't say what. 3 weeks later, Gabriel found himself standing outside Premier Catering Services for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. His assistant thought he was planning another charity event. Marcus suspected he'd lost his mind. Gabriel wasn't entirely sure Marcus was wrong. Mr. Sterling, the owner, Mrs. Patterson, bustled forward the moment he entered. "Back again. I have several menu options ready for your review. Actually, I was hoping to speak with one of your staff members, Sofia Morales." Mrs. Patterson's smile faltered slightly. "Sophia? She's not working today. College classes, you know. May I ask what this is about?" Gabriel had rehearsed this conversation, but now the words felt hollow. "She provided exceptional service at my gala. I wanted to discuss having her work my future events specifically." "I see." Mrs. Patterson's tone suggested she saw more than Gabriel intended. "I can pass along a message. Could you give me her contact information? I'd prefer to speak with her directly. I'm afraid we don't give out personal information about our employees. Company policy." Gabriel pulled out his phone. "Of course, I understand. Could you at least tell her I stopped by?" "Certainly, Mr. Sterling." The conversation felt stilted, professional, and completely inadequate for what Gabriel actually wanted to say. He left feeling more frustrated than when he'd arrived. Back in his penthouse office, Gabriel stared out at Central Park and tried to focus on quarterly reports. Instead, he kept thinking about grey eyes and a voice saying, "Why me? Why did I get lucky when they didn't?" "You're being ridiculous," he told himself out loud. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Lunch meeting with the Kozlov group moved to 2 o'clock. Also, Victoria Ashworth called. Again. Gabriel ignored the Victoria comment. Fine. Anything else? Yes. Whatever you're doing, stop it. I don't know what you mean. Gabriel, I've known you for 15 years. You're obsessing over something and it's not work. Talk to me. Gabriel ended the call without responding. Marcus meant well, but he wouldn't understand. How could Gabriel explain that a conversation with a waitress had been the first time in months he'd felt like himself? His phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. Hello? Mr. Sterling? This is Sophia Morales. Mrs. Patterson said you wanted to speak with me. Gabriel's heart jumped. Sophia, yes, thank you for calling. She said something about future events? Gabriel closed his eyes. He'd rehearsed this too, but now every prepared line sounded stupid. I wanted to thank you for the other night. Silence on the other end. Then, you don't need to thank me for doing my job. That wasn't your job. What you did in my study, that was kindness. Anyone would have helped. No, they wouldn't have. Most people would have pretended not to see, or they would have gotten security, or they would have used it as gossip material later. You stayed, you helped, you understood. Another pause. When Sophia spoke again, her voice was softer. You don't owe me anything for that. I'm not calling because I owe you. I'm calling because I'd like to see you again. Mr. Sterling. Gabriel, please. Gabriel. She said his name carefully, like she was testing it. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because we're from completely different worlds. Because I need my job with Premier Catering, and getting involved with a client is a good way to lose it. Because rich men who seek out waitresses usually want something I'm not selling. Gabriel winced. I'm not trying to buy anything, Sophia. I haven't had a real conversation with anyone in longer than I care to admit. That night, talking with you, was the first time in months I felt like a person instead of a walking bank account. That's very flattering, but have coffee with me. 1 hour, public place. If you're uncomfortable or I'm not who you thought I was, you never have to see me again. Sophia was quiet for so long, Gabriel wondered if she'd hung up. 1 coffee, she said finally. But I choose the place. Deal. There's a coffee shop called Been There on Amsterdam Avenue near Columbia. Tomorrow at 2. I'll be there. After she hung up, Gabriel sat back in his chair and realized he was smiling for the first time in weeks. The next afternoon, Gabriel arrived at Been There 15 minutes early. The coffee shop was exactly what he'd expected. Mismatched chairs, local art on the walls, and the kind of worn comfort that spoke of regular customers and long study. Sessions. He felt overdressed in his suit. Sophia arrived exactly on time, wearing jeans and a Columbia sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger than she had at the gala, but also more herself. You came, she said, sliding into the chair across from him. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might change your mind, realize this was a bad idea. Gabriel studied her face. Did you change your mind? About 50 times between yesterday and now. Sophia smiled, and Gabriel felt something tight in his chest loosen. But I'm here. They ordered coffee. She got a complicated latte, he got black coffee, and for a few minutes they sat in the kind of awkward silence that comes before important conversations. So, Sophia said finally, what do you actually want, Gabriel? Honest answer? That would be nice for a change. Gabriel turned his coffee cup in his hands. I want to know how you do it, how you carry that kind of pain and still show up for other people, how you work 3 jobs and go to school and still have enough left over to help a stranger having a panic attack. You think I have it figured out? Don't you? Sophia laughed, but there was no humor in it. Gabriel, half the time I can barely keep my head above water. I'm behind on rent, I'm stressed about my thesis, and I haven't called my mother in 2 weeks because I can't handle her asking when I'm going to find a nice man and give her grandchildren. I helped you because I recognized the look on your face. I've seen it in my mirror plenty of times. But you keep going. What's the alternative? Give up. Let my family's sacrifice mean nothing. Let my cousins who didn't make it out be forgotten. Sophia shook her head. My grandmother used to say that surviving isn't enough. You have to live in a way that honors the people who didn't get the chance. Gabriel felt like she'd punched him in the gut. Your grandmother sounds wise. She was. She also would have told you that hiding behind guilt is just another way of dying. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, students typed on laptops and couples shared pastries, the normal rhythm of life continuing. Tell me about Elena, Sophia said quietly. Gabriel's first instinct was to deflect, to give the sanitized version he gave everyone else. Instead, he found himself talking about the real Elena, how she'd snorted when she laughed, how she'd cried at commercials with puppies, how she'd made him eat vegetables by hiding them in pasta sauce. She sounds wonderful. She was, but she was also stubborn and competitive, and she had terrible taste in movies. Everyone acts like losing her made me lose a saint, but that's not who she was. She was human, complicated, real. And you feel guilty for remembering the complicated parts? I feel guilty for everything, for being alive when she's not, for having moments when I'm not thinking about her, for sitting here with you feeling more like myself than I have in months. Sophia reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. Her touch was warm, brief, but it grounded him. Guilt is just love with nowhere to go, she said. Elena wouldn't want you to stop living, would she? Gabriel's throat felt tight. No, she'd probably be furious with me for wasting so much time being miserable. Then maybe it's time to stop. They talked for 2 hours, about books and movies and travel, about Sophia's research and Gabriel's company, about growing up in different worlds, but somehow ending up in the same place. 2 people trying to figure out how to move forward after loss. When they finally left the coffee shop, Gabriel walked Sophia to the subway station. Thank you, he said, for today, for listening. Thank you for trusting me with the real story. Gabriel wanted to ask when he could see her again, but something held him back. This felt fragile, important, and he didn't want to push too hard too fast. Sophia? She turned back from the subway entrance. Would you maybe want to do this again sometime? Her smile was answer enough. 6 months had passed since that first coffee, and Gabriel Sterling found himself in unfamiliar territory. He was happy. Not the forced happiness of social obligations, but the genuine contentment that came from looking forward to something every day. That something was Sophia. "Oh, you're humming," Marcus observed, looking up from his laptop as Gabriel entered their shared office space. "That's new. I hum. Not for the past 2 years you haven't." Marcus closed his laptop deliberately. "We need to talk." Gabriel settled behind his desk, still feeling the warmth from his lunch with Sophia. They'd spent 2 hours in Central Park, talking about her research on trauma recovery, while feeding ducks by the pond. She'd laughed at his terrible jokes and challenged his assumptions about privilege and responsibility. "What's on your mind?" Gabriel asked, though he suspected he knew. "Sophia Morales. What about her?" Marcus leaned forward. "Gabriel, I'm glad you're getting out more. I'm glad you're making friends, but I'm worried you're using this woman to avoid dealing with your grief. That's not what this is." "Then what is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're developing feelings for someone you barely know." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "I know her. You know she's pretty and she was nice to you at a vulnerable moment. That's not the same thing as knowing someone." Before Gabriel could respond, his phone buzzed. Sophia's name appeared on the screen, and despite his irritation with Marcus, Gabriel smiled. "Hi, Gabriel." Sophia's voice was strained. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Gabriel's smile faded. "What's wrong? Are you paying for my grandfather's medical bills?" Gabriel closed his eyes. He'd hoped she wouldn't find out, at least not yet. "Sophia, are you?" "Yes." Silence on the other end. Marcus was watching with raised eyebrows. "I have to go," Sophia said finally. "We need to talk, tonight." The line went dead. Gabriel stared at his phone, his good mood evaporating. "Let me guess," Marcus said. "You tried to help, and it backfired." "Her grandfather needed surgery. The family was drowning in medical debt. I just made a few calls, had the hospital bill sent to me instead. Without telling her. I knew she'd say no. And now she feels manipulated and you feel misunderstood. Gabriel, this is exactly what I was worried about. You can't fix everyone's problems with money." Gabriel stood abruptly. "This isn't about fixing anything. This is about caring for someone and wanting to help. Is it? Or is it about feeling useful again, feeling needed?" The words hit too close to home. Gabriel grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. That evening, Gabriel met Sophia at their usual coffee shop. She was already there when he arrived, her posture rigid, her expression guarded. "How long?" she asked without preamble. Gabriel sat down slowly. "How long what? How long have you been paying for things? The medical bills, the anonymous scholarship that suddenly appeared for Diego, the mysterious donation to the community center where my mother volunteers. How long, Gabriel?" He'd been caught, And they both knew it. A few months. A few months. Sophia's voice was dangerously quiet. While I've been killing myself working 3 jobs, stressing about money, losing sleep over how to help my family, you've been secretly fixing everything behind my back. I wanted to help. You wanted to control. Sophia leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? How patronizing? That wasn't my intention. Your intention doesn't matter. The result is the same. You turned me into your charity case. Gabriel felt his own anger rising. That's not fair. I care about you, Sophia. I care about your family. When you care about someone, you want to help them. Help them or fix them. Because there's a difference. What's that supposed to mean? Sophia stood up abruptly. It means I'm not Elena, Gabriel. I'm not someone you can save to make yourself feel better about the person you couldn't save. The words hit Gabriel like a physical blow. That's not what this is. Isn't it? Think about it. Really think about it. You meet a struggling woman with family problems, someone who needs rescuing, and suddenly you feel alive again. You get to be the hero, the savior, the one who fixes everything with his money and connections. It's a lot easier than dealing with your actual grief, isn't it? Gabriel's hands were shaking. You don't know what you're talking about. I know what it feels like to be someone's project instead of their equal. I know what it's like to have someone make decisions about your life without consulting you. My father used to do that. Make choices for our family without asking what we wanted, because he knew best. I swore I'd never let anyone do that to me again. I'm not your father. No, but you're acting like you know what's best for me better than I do. You're acting like my pride and my independence don't matter, as long as your intentions are good. They stared at each other across the small table, both breathing hard. Around them, the coffee shop continued its normal evening rhythm, oblivious to the relationship fracturing in the corner. So, what do you want me to do? Gabriel asked finally. Apologize for caring. Pretend I don't have the resources to help when I see you struggling. I want you to see me as an equal, not a problem to be solved. I do see you as an equal. No, you don't. Equals make decisions together. Equals ask before they act. Equals respect each other's choices, even when they disagree with them. Gabriel ran his hands through his hair. You would have said no to the help. Yes, I would have, because it's my choice to make. Even if it meant your grandfather suffered. Even then, because it's my family, my responsibility, my decision. Sophia's voice softened slightly. Gabriel, I know you meant well, but you took away my agency. You made me into someone who needed saving instead of someone who was handling her own problems. Gabriel felt something cracking inside his chest. I thought I was being loving. Love isn't about fixing someone or making their problems disappear. Love is about standing beside someone while they handle their own problems. Love is about respecting someone enough to let them make their own choices, even difficult ones. The truth of her words settled over Gabriel like a heavy blanket. He thought about Elena, about how he'd tried to control her treatment, to research every option, to fix what couldn't be fixed. He thought about how frustrated she'd become with his attempts to manage her cancer for her. You're right, he said quietly. Sophia blinked, clearly not expecting the admission. You're right about all of it. I have been trying to save you. I have been treating you like a problem to be solved instead of a person to be loved. Gabriel looked up at her. I have been using you to avoid dealing with my grief. Sophia sat back down slowly. Gabriel, no, let me finish. Elena used to get so angry with me when I tried to take over her treatment decisions. She said I was loving her like she was dying instead of like she was living. I thought I understood what she meant then, but I didn't. Not really. Gabriel's voice was rough with emotion. I'm doing the same thing to you. I'm loving you like you're broken instead of like you're strong. I'm loving you like you need fixing, instead of like you're perfectly capable of handling your own life. I am strong, Sophia said softly, but that doesn't mean I don't need people. It just means I need them differently than you think. Gabriel reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. How do you need me, Sophia? Tell me how to love you the right way. Sophia looked down at his outstretched hand, then back up at his face. I need you to trust me to know what's best for my own life. I need you to ask before you help. I need you to see my struggles as part of who I am, not obstacles for you to remove. I can do that. Can you? Even when it's hard to watch me struggle with things you could easily fix. Gabriel thought about it honestly. I don't know, but I want to learn. Sophia finally reached out and took his hand, and took I need you to see me as your equal, Gabriel. Not your project, not your second chance at saving someone, not your way of avoiding grief. Just me, Sophia. Someone who chooses to be with you because she wants to be, not because she needs to be. Gabriel turned her hand over in his, studying her fingers. I do see you, Sophia, that's the problem. I see how brilliant you are, how strong, how determined. I see how much you give to everyone else and how little you keep for yourself. I see you working yourself to exhaustion, and I want to make it easier. But making it easier isn't the same as making it better. My struggles are part of my story. They're part of what makes me who I am. When you try to erase them, you're trying to erase part of me. Gabriel squeezed her hand gently. I never thought of it that way. I know, and that's the problem. You see my pain, and you want to fix it, but you don't see that surviving my pain is part of my strength. They sat in silence for a moment, hands linked across the table. I love you, Gabriel said suddenly. I've been afraid to say it because I didn't want to complicate things, but I love you, Sophia. Not because you need saving. Not because you remind me of Elena. Not because helping you makes me feel better about myself. I love you because you see the world clearly and you still choose hope. I love you because you challenge me and support me and make me want to be better. I love you because when I'm with you, I remember who I am, underneath all the grief and guilt. Sophia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I love you too. That's why this hurts so much. I love you, but I won't let you save me. I won't be your redemption or your second chance, or your way of avoiding the hard work of grieving Elena. What if I could learn to love you without trying to save you? Then we might have a chance. Gabriel brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. Teach me. Sophia smiled through her tears. It's going to be hard work. The best things usually are. 3 weeks had passed since Gabriel and Sophia's confrontation at the coffee shop, and their relationship had found a new rhythm. Gabriel was learning to ask before offering help, and Sophia was learning to let him be part of her struggles without taking them over. They were both cautiously optimistic that they'd found their footing. That optimism shattered on a Tuesday morning when Sophia's phone rang at 6 a.m. Sophia, have you seen the news? Diego's voice was tight with panic. Sophia fumbled for her laptop, still half asleep in her small apartment. What news? Channel 7, their website, just look. Sophia's blood turned cold as the webpage loaded. The headline read, Millionaire's Mystery Woman, The Truth About Sophia Morales. Below it was a photo of her and Gabriel walking hand in hand through Central Park, clearly taken without their knowledge. The article was devastating in its thoroughness. It detailed her family's immigration status from 20 years ago, complete with court documents that should have been sealed. It questioned how an undocumented worker's daughter had ended up at Columbia, suggesting financial impropriety. It painted her as a gold digger who had targeted Gabriel at his charity gala. Oh God, Sophia whispered. It gets worse, Diego said grimly. Mom called. Immigration officers showed up at the restaurant where she works this morning. They had copies of the article. Sophia's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. Are they okay? For now. Mom's been a citizen for 15 years, but they're asking questions about relatives, about how we paid for college, about you and Gabriel. Sophia, they're reopening cases that were closed decades ago. Before Sophia could respond, her phone buzzed with another call. Gabriel's name appeared on the screen. I have to go, she told Diego. Call me if anything else happens. She switched to Gabriel's call. You saw it. Sophia, I'm so sorry. My lawyers are already working on getting it taken down, and we're going to sue them for invasion of privacy. It doesn't matter. Sophia's voice was eerily calm. The damage is done. It's already been picked up by 3 other news sites. We'll get through this. It's just gossip. It'll blow over. Sophia laughed bitterly. Gabriel, immigration officers showed up at my mother's work this morning. This isn't gossip. This is my family's safety. The line went quiet. When Gabriel spoke again, his voice was strained. What can I do? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. Sophia closed her laptop and started pacing her tiny living room. Actually, that's not true. There is something you can do. Anything. Stay away from me. Sophia, I'm serious, Gabriel. As long as we're together, my family is in danger. As long as I'm the millionaire's mystery woman, we're all targets. Running away won't solve anything. Won't it? Without me in your life, you're just a grieving widower who keeps to himself. The story dies, the attention goes away. My family goes back to being invisible. Gabriel's voice was desperate now. There has to be another way. What other way? You can't buy your way out of this one, Gabriel. You can't write a check to make this go away. The words hung between them like a blade. Sophia immediately regretted them. I didn't mean— Yes, you did. And you're right. Gabriel's voice was hollow. I can't fix this. I can't protect you from this. My presence in your life has made everything worse. Sophia pressed her hand to her forehead, fighting back tears. I need some time to think. How much time? I don't know. After she hung up, Sophia sat on her couch and finally let herself cry. Not just for Gabriel, but for the impossible situation they were in. She'd worked so hard to build a life, to earn her place in this country, to prove she belonged. Now it was all unraveling because she'd fallen in love with the wrong man. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is just the beginning. Stay away from Gabriel Sterling or your whole family pays the price. Sophia stared at the message, her blood running cold. Someone had orchestrated this entire attack, and they weren't done yet. Meanwhile, across town, Gabriel was having his own crisis. His office had been flooded with calls all morning. Reporters, board members, and what Marcus diplomatically called concerned investors. The board wants to meet, Marcus said, closing Gabriel's office door behind him. This afternoon. Let me guess. They want me to issue a statement distancing myself from Sophia. Actually, they want you to issue a statement distancing yourself from the controversy. They don't care about Sophia one way or the other, but they care about the company's reputation. Gabriel turned to stare out his office window. Central Park stretched below, the same park where he and Sophia had walked just days ago, planning a future that now seemed impossible. What do you think I should do? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I think you should ask yourself what Elena would want you to do. Gabriel's throat tightened. Elena would want me to fight for her. Sophia's not Eleanor. No, but she's the woman I love, and I'm not going to abandon her because it's inconvenient for my board of directors. Marcus nodded slowly. I was hoping you'd say that. You were. Gabriel, I've watched you for 2 years. You've been going through the motions, managing your grief, being responsible. But you haven't been living. These past few months, watching you with Sophia, you've been alive again. Real again. I'd hate to see you give that up because some people are threatened by your happiness. Gabriel felt a surge of gratitude for his friend. The board won't see it that way. The board will see it however you frame it. You're not just the CEO, Gabriel. You're the majority shareholder. If you want to weather this storm, you can. And if Sophia doesn't want me to, Marcus smiled grimly, then you convince her. Because running away didn't work after Elena died, and it won't work now. Gabriel was reaching for his phone to call Sophia when it rang. Unknown number. Gabriel Sterling. Mr. Sterling, this is Detective Maria Santos with the NYPD. We need to talk about the threats being made against Miss Sophia Morales. Gabriel's blood turned cold. What threats? Someone's been sending her messages, escalating in nature. She filed a report this morning. Given your relationship and the recent media attention, we'd like to speak with you about potential suspects. Gabriel was already grabbing his jacket. I'll be right there. At the police station, Gabriel found Sophia sitting in a plastic chair, looking smaller and more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. Diego sat beside her, his jaw tight with anger. Sophia! Gabriel started toward her, but she held up a hand to stop him. Don't. Please. You being here just makes everything worse. Detective Santos, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, gestured for Gabriel to sit. Mr. Sterling, we're investigating who might have access to sealed immigration records from the 1990s, and who might have the resources to conduct the kind of comprehensive background investigation that was done on Ms. Morales. You think someone I know is behind this? We think someone with money and connections orchestrated this attack. The question is who and why. Gabriel's mind raced through possibilities. Business rivals, ex-girlfriends, social climbers who felt threatened by Sophia's presence in his life. Victoria Ashworth, he said suddenly. Sophia looked up sharply. Who? Victoria Ashworth. She's been pursuing me since Elena died. She was at the gala the night we met. She saw us talking. Detective Santos made a note. Tell me about Ms. Ashworth. Gabriel outlined Victoria's persistent attempts to get his attention, her connections in high society, her family's political influence. She has the resources and the motive, Diego said. But can you prove it? We're working on it, Detective Santos said. In the meantime, Ms. Morales, you should consider staying somewhere else for a few days. The threats are escalating. Sophia shook her head. I can't run forever. You're not running, Gabriel said. You're being smart. Come stay at my place. I have security, cameras, a doorman. Gabriel, we've been through this. Me being with you is what caused this problem. Me loving you isn't the problem, Sophia. Someone trying to hurt you because of it is the problem, and I'm not going to let them win. Sophia looked at him with exhausted eyes. What if they're right? What if we're too different? What if this is too hard? Gabriel knelt beside her chair, ignoring Diego's protective glare. Sophia, look at me. Do you love me? That's not the point. It's the only point. Do you love me? Tears spilled down her cheeks. Yes, but love isn't always enough. Sometimes it's all we have, and sometimes all we have is enough. Gabriel took her hands gently. I'm not giving up on us, not because of some tabloid story, not because of threats, not because it's complicated. You taught me that struggle is part of strength. Well, this is our struggle. Let's be strong together. Sophia looked at Diego, who nodded reluctantly. Then back at Gabriel. Okay, she whispered, but if this gets worse, if my family gets hurt because of us, then we'll face that together too. Detective Santos cleared her throat. Ms. Morales, we really do recommend you stay somewhere secure tonight. Sophia squeezed Gabriel's hands. All right, but I'm not hiding. We figure out who's doing this and we stop them. Gabriel helped her stand. Together. Together. Neither of them saw the figure watching from across the street as they left the police station, or the satisfied smile that crossed Victoria Ashworth's perfectly painted lips. 2 years later, Sophia Morales, now doctor. Sophia Morales stood in the bright lobby of the Portland Community Wellness Center, watching a young mother comfort her crying toddler in Spanish. The familiar sound of her native language mixed with English created the comforting bilingual hum that had become the soundtrack to her new life. Doctor. Morales? Her assistant Carmen appeared at her elbow. Your 3 o'clock is here early. Should I have her wait? Sophia glanced at her schedule. Maria Santos, a 17-year-old whose family had fled Honduras 6 months ago. The girl hadn't spoken in their last 2 sessions, but Sophia wasn't giving up. Send her in. And Carmen, could you make sure we have some of those chamomile tea bags, the ones that smell like her grandmother's garden? Carmen smiled. Already on it. Sophia had learned that healing often came through the smallest gestures, the most unexpected connections. 2 years of running her own practice had taught her things that grad school never could about resilience, hope, and the complicated ways people rebuilt their lives after trauma. Her phone buzzed. A text from Diego, now an investigative journalist in New York. Saw your interview in Psychology Today. Proud of you, sis. How's Portland treating you? Sophia smiled as she typed back, Good, quiet, no reporters hiding in bushes. LOL. Speaking of reporters, never mind. Call me later. Sophia frowned at the incomplete message, but didn't have time to follow up. Maria Santos was being led into her office, shoulders hunched defensively, eyes scanning for exits. Hola, Maria, Sophia said gently, switching to Spanish. How are you feeling today? The session went better than expected. Maria actually spoke, just a few words about missing her friends back home, but it was progress. After the girl left with her mother, Sophia sat in her office and updated her notes, feeling the familiar satisfaction that came from small victories. She'd built something here in Portland, something meaningful. The wellness center served 3 neighborhoods with large immigrant populations, offering everything from therapy to legal aid to ESL classes. Sophia's trauma recovery program was booked solid, and she'd just received a grant to expand their services. It was a good life, a quiet life, a life that belonged entirely to her. So why did she feel so empty? Her computer chimed with an email notification. The sender's name made her breath catch. Marcus Chen. Sophia stared at the subject line. I know you said no contact, but this is important. Her finger hovered over the delete button. 2 years ago, when she'd left New York, she'd been clear with everyone. No contact with Gabriel's world. It was the only way she could start over without constantly looking over her shoulder. But something made her click open the message. Dr. Morales, I hope this email finds you well. I know you asked for no contact, and I've respected that until now. But something has happened that I think you should know about. Gabriel found Elena's letter. I know that probably doesn't mean much to you now, but Elena wrote him a letter before she died, asking him to find love again. She hid it in a place she knew he'd only look when he was ready to let go of his guilt. He found it last week. I'm not writing to ask you to contact him. I'm writing because I thought you should know that the man you loved is finally grieving properly. He's finally healing. I thought you'd want to know that your time together wasn't wasted. You changed him, Sophia. You saved him even if you couldn't stay to see it. With respect, Marcus. Sophia read the email 3 times before closing her laptop. She walked to her office window and stared out at the Portland skyline, her mind spinning back to a penthouse in Manhattan and a man who'd been drowning in grief. Elena's letter. Sophia could picture it perfectly. Gabriel's dead wife knowing she was dying, writing words of love and permission for the husband she was leaving behind. It was exactly the kind of gesture that would have broken Gabriel's heart and healed it at the same time. Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. Carmen's voice came through the intercom. Dr. Morales, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. Gabriel Sterling? Sophia's heart stopped. What? Should I tell him you're busy? Sophia looked at her reflection in the window. 2 years had changed her. She was thinner, more polished, more confident. Her hair was shorter, her clothes more professional. She looked like exactly what she was, a successful therapist who'd built her own practice from nothing. Dr. Morales? Send him in, Sophia heard herself say. Gabriel appeared in her doorway moments later, and Sophia felt like she'd been punched in the chest. He looked older, more weathered, but also somehow lighter than she remembered. The weight of grief that had always pressed down on his shoulders seemed less crushing. Hello, Sophia. Gabriel. Her voice came out steady, professional. This is unexpected. I know, I'm sorry for just showing up. I tried calling, but your number's changed. It needed to change. Sophia gestured to the chair across from her desk. Please, sit. Gabriel remained standing, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He looked around her office, taking in the diplomas on the wall, the comfortable furniture, the small fountain in the corner that provided soothing background noise. You've done well for yourself. I've worked hard. That's not what I meant. You've built something meaningful here, something that helps people. It's exactly what you always said you wanted to do. Sophia studied his face, looking for signs of the man who'd tried to solve her problems with money. Instead, she saw someone who understood the difference between helping and controlling. Why are you here, Gabriel? Gabriel finally sat down but remained on the edge of the chair like he might need to run. Marcus said he wrote to you. He mentioned Elena's letter. Gabriel's expression softened. She knew, you know, about us. Not specifically about you, but she knew I'd find someone eventually. She was worried I'd feel too guilty to let myself be happy. Were you? For a long time, yes. Gabriel met her eyes. She wrote that letter 3 days before she died, but she hid it in the back of her jewelry box behind a photo we took on our honeymoon. She knew I'd only look there when I was ready to put her ring away. Sophia's throat tightened. And you were ready. Last week I was cleaning out the penthouse. I'm selling it, moving somewhere smaller, and I found it. She told me she loved me enough to want me to love someone else. She said grief was just love with nowhere to go, and she wanted me to find a new place to put all that love. The phrase hit Sophia like an arrow. That's what I told you at the coffee shop that first day. I know. Maybe that's why I fell for you so hard, so fast. Some part of me recognized Elena's wisdom in your words. They sat in silence for a moment, the fountain providing gentle background noise. Gabriel, why are you here? Sophia asked again. Gabriel ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made Sophia's chest ache. Because I've spent 2 years learning how to grieve properly, learning how to remember Elena without drowning in guilt, learning how to be alone without being lonely. That's good, I'm glad. But I've also spent 2 years missing you, missing us, missing the person I was when I was with you. Sophia felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. Gabriel, I know you built a life here. I know you're happy. I'm not here to disrupt that or to try to convince you to come back to New York. I'm here because I needed you to know that I finally understand what you tried to teach me. Which was? That love isn't about saving someone. It's about seeing someone clearly and choosing to stay anyway. It's about respecting someone enough to let them make their own choices, even when those choices take them away from you. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. She'd thought she was done crying. It took you 2 years to figure that out? Gabriel's smile was rueful. I'm a slow learner, but I'm here now and I'm asking, not demanding, not assuming, just asking, if there's any chance you might want to try again. Different this time. Better this time. Sophia stood up and walked to the window, needing space to think. Outside, Portland continued its daily rhythm, oblivious to the conversation that was reshaping her world. What about Victoria Ashworth? In federal prison for immigration fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Diego's investigation led to a much bigger scandal than just us. Turns out she'd been using similar tactics to destroy other women she saw as threats. Sophia turned back to him. And your company? Thriving. Turns out weathering a scandal with grace actually impressed the board more than avoiding controversy altogether. And your grief? Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. Elena will always be part of me. I'll always love her, always miss her. But I've learned the difference between honoring her memory and being imprisoned by it. She wouldn't want me to stop living because she couldn't. Sophia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm not the same person who left New York, Gabriel. I'm stronger now, more independent. I won't let anyone make decisions for my life, not even you. I wouldn't want you to. The woman you've become, successful, confident, self-sufficient, she's who I fell in love with in the first place. I was just too grief-stricken and controlling to see it clearly. Sophia looked at him sitting in her office, this man who'd flown across the country not to rescue her or to convince her to come back to him, but simply to tell her he'd learned to love her the right way. What are you asking for, Gabriel? A chance. Not to pick up where we left off, but to start over. To get to know the person you are now, and to let you get to know who I've become, to see if what we had was real enough to rebuild on a stronger foundation. Sophia thought about the past 2 years, the loneliness she'd pushed aside with work, the way her heart still skipped when she saw his name in news articles, the dreams she still had about walking through Central Park, hand in hand with a man who understood her in ways no one else ever had. I can't move back to New York. I'm not asking you to. I'm thinking about relocating anyway. Portland seems nice. Sophia almost smiled. You can't just uproot your life for me. I'm not uprooting my life for you. I'm planting it somewhere it might actually grow. This time Sophia did smile. That's very poetic for a businessman. I've had 2 years to work on my metaphors. Sophia sat back down across from him. If we do this, and I'm not saying we are, it would have to be different, equal. I make my own decisions about my career, my family, my life. Agreed. No more secret payments or behind-the-scenes fixing. Agreed. No more trying to save me from my own struggles. That one might be harder, but yes. Agreed. Sophia studied his face, looking for signs of the old Gabriel who'd thought love meant control. Instead, she saw a man who'd learned that the best way to love someone was to trust them to live their own life. I'll need time to think about this, to figure out what I want. Gabriel stood up. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. As he reached the door, Sophia called his name. Gabriel. He turned back. It's good to see you. His smile was like sunrise. It's good to see you too, Sophia. The real you, the woman you've become. After he left, Sophia sat in her office until well past dark, thinking about second chances and the complicated mathematics of love. Outside her window, Portland sparkled with promise, and for the first time in 2 years, Sophia let herself imagine a future that included more than just work and quiet contentment. Maybe, she thought, some things were worth the risk of trying again. 1 year later, Sophia stood in the main therapy room of the newly expanded Portland Community Wellness Center, watching Gabriel install the last of the adjustable lighting fixtures. He'd insisted on doing the manual work himself, claiming he needed to understand how every part of the center functioned. You know, I could have hired an electrician, Sophia said, trying not to smile as Gabriel wrestled with a particularly stubborn wire. Where's the fun in that? Gabriel grunted, finally getting the connection secure. Besides, I like building things with my hands. It's therapeutic. Speaking as an actual therapist, there are easier ways to work through your control issues. Gabriel laughed and climbed down from the ladder. I prefer the hands-on approach. The past year had been a careful dance of rediscovery. Gabriel had relocated Sterling Technologies' Western operations to Portland, not just for Sophia, but because he'd genuinely fallen in love with the city's culture of innovation and social responsibility. They dated slowly, deliberately, learning each other all over again. This time, when Gabriel wanted to help with the wellness center's expansion, he'd asked Sophia what she needed, instead of assuming he knew. When she'd struggled with a difficult case, he'd listened without trying to fix anything. When her mother had been hospitalized with pneumonia, he'd offered support, but let Sophia handle the medical decisions and insurance paperwork herself. It hadn't always been easy. Gabriel still had moments where his instinct was to take control, and Sophia still had moments where her independence felt more like isolation. But they'd learned to talk through their struggles instead of around them. The donor recognition plaque is going up tomorrow, Gabriel said, wiping his hands on a towel. Are you sure you want it to say Sterling Foundation instead of something more anonymous? Sophia nodded. Transparency, remember? Besides, it's good for the community to see successful businesses investing locally. Gabriel's smile was proud. Look at you, thinking like a non-profit director. I am a non-profit director, also still a therapist, also still your girlfriend who occasionally needs to remind you that I can make my own decisions. How could I forget? You remind me at least twice a week. Sophia threw a paint-stained rag at him which he caught easily. Someone has to keep you honest. Gabriel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. It's Diego. Says he's outside and needs to talk to both of us. Something about a story he's working on. 5 minutes later, Diego burst through the center's front door, laptop bag slung over his shoulder, and excitement radiating from every gesture. You're not going to believe this, he said without preamble. I've been investigating Victoria Ashworth's business dealings for a follow-up piece, and I found something huge. Sophia and Gabriel exchanged glances. Victoria had been in federal prison for 18 months, and they'd all assumed that chapter of their lives was closed. What kind of huge? Sophia asked. Diego opened his laptop and turned it toward them. The screen showed a complex financial chart with arrows connecting various organizations. Victoria wasn't just targeting random women she saw as threats. She was running a systematic campaign against anyone who might interfere with her family's political and business interests. Sophia, you weren't her only victim. There were at least 6 other women over the past 5 years. Gabriel leaned forward, studying the chart. Other women dating men she wanted. Bigger than that. Women dating men whose companies she wanted to acquire. Women whose businesses competed with her family's interests. Women whose advocacy work threatened their political agenda. She had a whole network of private investigators, hackers, and media contacts. Sophia felt sick. How many lives did she destroy? That's the thing, she didn't destroy them. Most of these women survived, rebuilt, came back stronger, and now they're all connected to each other through my investigation. They want to do something about it. Diego clicked to another screen showing what looked like a website mock-up. They're starting a foundation, legal aid and support services for women who've been targeted by this kind of systematic harassment. They want it based here in Portland, and they want Sophia to run it. Sophia stared at the screen. They want me to what? Think about it. You're a trauma therapist who's been through this exact experience. You understand both the psychological impact and the practical challenges. You've built a successful practice from nothing. You're perfect for this. Gabriel was watching Sophia's face carefully. What do you think? Sophia's mind was racing. The foundation would be huge, much bigger than the wellness center, with national scope and significant funding. It would mean leaving her practice, taking on massive new responsibilities, stepping back into the public eye she'd worked so hard to escape. It would also mean helping women in ways she'd never dreamed possible. I need to think about it, Sophia said finally. Diego grinned. I was hoping you'd say that because there's more. The other women are coming here next week. They want to meet you, talk about the vision, see if you're interested. After Diego left, Sophia and Gabriel finished cleaning up the therapy room in thoughtful silence. Finally, Gabriel spoke. You want to do it. Is it that obvious? You get this look when you're thinking about something that excites and terrifies you at the same time. Same look you had when you decided to leave New York. Sophia sat down in one of the newly installed chairs. It would change everything. The practice, our quiet life here, our plans. Gabriel sat across from her. Plans can change. What matters is whether this feels right to you. What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? What if you succeed beyond your wildest dreams and help hundreds of women rebuild their lives? Sophia looked at him. How you really think I could do it? Sophia, I've watched you build a trauma therapy practice from nothing while going to school full-time. I've watched you help Maria Santos go from not speaking to giving a presentation at her high school graduation. I've watched you turn a struggling community center into a model program that other cities are trying to replicate. If anyone can do this, it's you. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. It would mean more time away from home, more travel, more stress. It would also mean more impact, more fulfillment, more of you in the world. And I'll be here supporting you every step of the way. What about your work? Sterling Technologies just got established here. Gabriel smiled. Funny thing about being the boss. I can work from anywhere. Besides, I've been thinking about scaling back anyway, focusing on fewer projects, more meaningful ones. Sophia studied his face. You mean that? You wouldn't resent me for disrupting our life again? Sophia, this isn't a disruption. This is growth. This is you becoming who you're meant to be. Gabriel leaned forward. And honestly, watching you step into your power is the most attractive thing I've ever seen. Sophia laughed despite her tears. Even when it means chaos and uncertainty. Especially then, I fell in love with a woman who was fighting for her dreams while working 3 jobs and going to school. Why would I want you to become someone smaller now? That evening, Sophia called Diego back. I want to meet them, she said without preamble. The other women. They'll be here Monday. No, I mean yes to that too, but I want to meet them as a potential partner, not just someone they're considering for a job. If we're going to do this, we do it together. Equal voices, shared leadership. Diego's excitement was audible through the phone. Sophia, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be terrifying. Same thing, right? The next week, Sophia found herself sitting around a conference table with 5 other women, each with her own story of surviving Victoria Ashworth's attacks. There was Jennifer, a tech entrepreneur whose startup had been nearly destroyed by manufactured scandals. Lisa, a civil rights lawyer who'd been targeted when she dated a judge Victoria's family wanted to control. Carmen, an environmental activist whose relationship with a city councilman had made her a target. As they shared their stories, Sophia felt something she hadn't expected. Relief. For 2 years she'd carried the weight of her experience alone. Hearing that she hadn't been uniquely weak or naive, that Victoria's campaign had been calculated and systematic, lifted a burden she hadn't realized she was still carrying. The foundation would have 3 main goals, Jennifer explained. Legal aid for women facing this kind of harassment, therapy and support services for recovery, and advocacy work to change laws around privacy and digital stalking. And you want it based in Portland? Sophia asked. We want it based wherever you are, Lisa said simply. You're the only one of us with the therapeutic background to really understand the trauma recovery piece. Plus, your story is the most public. People know who you are. Sophia felt Gabriel's hand squeeze hers under the table. I need some time to consider the logistics. Actually, Carmen interrupted, we've already worked out most of the logistics. Diego helped us research the legal requirements, and Jennifer's lawyers have drawn up preliminary papers. We're calling it the Phoenix Foundation. Phoenix? Sophia asked. Rising from the ashes, Lisa explained. What all of us did after Victoria tried to destroy us. Sophia looked around the table at these strong, accomplished women who'd all survived the same kind of systematic attack she had. They weren't victims anymore. They were warriors preparing for battle. What would my role be exactly? Director of Therapeutic Services, Jennifer said. You'd oversee all the mental health programming, train other therapists in trauma recovery for harassment victims, and help develop our support protocols. It would be a full-time position, Carmen added. Significant travel, national scope, much bigger platform than what you have now. Sophia thought about the quiet life she'd built in Portland, the individual clients she'd helped one by one, the small but meaningful impact she'd been making. Then she thought about the hundreds of women who might need help in the future, about the chance to prevent other families from going through what hers had endured, about the opportunity to turn her worst experience into her greatest contribution. I'll do it, she said. The room erupted in cheers and hugs. Gabriel's proud smile was the brightest thing in the room. 3 months later, the Phoenix Foundation held its official launch event at the Portland Community Wellness Center. Sophia stood at the podium, looking out at an audience that included her parents, Diego, Marcus, and dozens of other supporters. 2 years ago, she began, I thought my life was over. I thought that being targeted, having my privacy violated and my family threatened, had broken something in me that couldn't be fixed. Gabriel watched from the front row, his eyes never leaving her face. What I've learned since then is that trauma doesn't have to be the end of our story. It can be the beginning of our strength. The Phoenix Foundation exists because 6 women refused to let one person's cruelty define our futures. We exist because we believe that surviving is just the first step. The real work is in learning to fly again. The applause was thunderous. As Sophia looked out at the crowd, she saw Maria Santos sitting with her mother, both of them beaming. She saw the other Phoenix Foundation directors nodding encouragingly. She saw her own family, proud and supportive, and she saw Gabriel, the man who'd learned to love her not by trying to save her, but by trusting her to save herself. After the event, as they walked through downtown Portland hand in hand, Gabriel squeezed her fingers. Proud of you, he said simply. For the speech, for everything. For building this, for taking the risk, for becoming exactly who you were meant to be. Sophia stopped walking and turned to face him. Gabriel, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever miss the quiet life? The simple relationship we had before all this? Gabriel considered the question seriously. Sometimes I miss the simplicity. But I wouldn't trade this version of us for anything. This is real, Sophia. Messy and complicated and sometimes scary, but real. Even when my work takes me away for weeks at a time. Even then, because when you come home as yourself, fully yourself. The woman who conquers the world and then comes back to tell me all about it. Sophia smiled. And you're okay with dating someone who conquers the world? Gabriel pulled her closer. I'm more than okay with it. I'm honored by it. As they continued walking through the city they'd both learned to call home, Sophia thought about the journey that had brought them here. The pain, the separation, the growth, the reunion. It hadn't been the simple love story either of them had expected, but it had been theirs. And sometimes she thought the best love stories were the ones that required you to become your best self before you could fully love someone else. Gabriel? Yeah? I love you. The real you. The one who builds lighting fixtures and moves across the country and learns to let me make my own mistakes. I love you too. The real you. The one who helps broken people heal and refuses to be saved by anyone but herself. They walked on through the Portland evening. Two people who'd learned that the strongest love wasn't the kind that protected you from the world, but the kind that gave you the courage to change it. 5 years had passed since Sophia Morales first walked into Gabriel Sterling's charity gala as a struggling graduate student carrying champagne flutes. Now, on a crisp October morning in Portland, she stood in the garden behind the Phoenix Foundation's headquarters, adjusting the flowers in her hair one last time. You ready? Diego asked, appearing at her elbow in his role as man of honor. At 28, he'd become one of the country's most respected investigative journalists, but to Sophia he was still her little brother, protective and proud. I think so. Sophia smoothed the simple cream-colored dress she'd chosen, elegant but not ostentatious, beautiful but practical enough that she could actually move in it. Do I look okay? You look like someone who's about to marry the love of her life in the garden of the organization she built to help other women. In other words, you look perfect. Through the open doors of the foundation building, Sophia could see their guests gathering. It was a small ceremony, family, close friends, and some of the women whose lives had been touched by the Phoenix Foundation's work. Maria Santos, now a freshman at Portland State University, sat in the front row next to Sophia's parents. The other Phoenix Foundation directors were there, along with Marcus and his wife Carmen, Diego's sister who'd moved to Portland the year before and fallen hard for Gabriel's best friend. 5 years, Sophia mused. Can you believe it's been 5 years since that night? Since the night you met Gabriel? Or since the night Victoria Ashworth tried to destroy your life? Sophia considered the question. Both, I guess. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Good thing it was a lifetime ago. Look at everything that's happened since then. Sophia followed his gaze toward the foundation building. In the 3 years since its launch, the Phoenix Foundation had helped over 800 women rebuild their lives after systematic harassment. They'd lobbied for stronger digital privacy laws, provided legal aid that had led to dozens of successful prosecutions, and created a therapeutic model that was being replicated across the country. Sophia's own practice had evolved too. She still saw individual clients, but now she also trained other therapists, spoke at conferences, and had written a book about trauma recovery that had become required reading in graduate programs nationwide. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never met Gabriel, Sophia said. You'd still be amazing, Diego said firmly. Maybe it would have taken longer, maybe the path would have been different, but you'd still be changing the world. Gabriel didn't make you who you are, Sophia. He just helped you see who you already were. Before Sophia could respond, the string quartet began playing. Through the open doors, she could see Gabriel standing at the makeshift altar they'd set up near the fountain. He looked nervous and excited, and perfectly himself in a simple dark suit. That's our cue, Diego said, offering Sophia his arm. As they walked through the foundation building toward the garden, Sophia thought about the journey that had brought her here. The scared girl who'd fled El Salvador with her family, the struggling student working 3 jobs to pay for school, the woman who'd fallen in love with a grieving widower and then had to walk away to protect them both, the survivor who'd turned her trauma into purpose. All of those versions of herself had led to this moment, this choice, this love. Gabriel's face lit up when he saw her, and Sophia felt the familiar flutter in her chest that had never quite gone away. Even after 2 years of dating slowly and carefully, even after moving in together and building a life that felt solid and real, he still made her heart skip. "Hi," he said softly, as Diego placed Sophia's hand in his. "Hi yourself," Sophia replied. The ceremony was brief and personal. Sophia's mother read a poem in Spanish that her own grandmother had written about love surviving hardship. Gabriel's cousin, who'd flown in from Boston, shared a story about how Gabriel had talked about Sophia non-stop for months before finally working up the courage to fly to Portland. When it came time for vows, Gabriel spoke first. "Sophia," he began, his voice steady but emotional, "5 years ago you taught me the difference between existing and living. You taught me that love isn't about saving someone. It's about seeing someone clearly and choosing to stay. You've shown me that the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall down, but the ones who get back up and help others do the same." Gabriel paused, looking out at the small gathering of people who'd become their chosen family. "I promise to love you without trying to fix you. I promise to support your dreams even when they scare me. I promise to trust you to make your own choices, even when I disagree with them. And I promise to keep learning how to be worthy of the incredible woman you've become." Sophia wiped away a tear before beginning her own vows. "Gabriel, you came into my life when I thought I had everything figured out. You showed me that letting someone love you isn't weakness, it's courage. You've taught me that partnership doesn't mean losing independence. It means choosing to build something together that's stronger than what either of us could create alone." Sophia's voice grew stronger as she continued. "I promise to keep growing even when it's uncomfortable. I promise to let you be part of my struggles without expecting you to solve them. I promise to trust you with my fears and my dreams. And I promise to keep choosing you every day, not because I need you, but because I want you." The rings were simple platinum bands, elegant, enduring, chosen together. As they slipped them onto each other's fingers, Sophia thought about all the ways they'd learned to love each other, imperfectly, honestly, with respect for each other's independence and appreciation for their shared strength. "By the power vested in me by the state of Oregon," the officiant said with a smile, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Gabriel's kiss was gentle, reverent, and filled with the promise of all the tomorrows they'd build together. The reception was held right there in the foundation's garden, with food catered by a local restaurant, run by a refugee family the foundation had helped. As Sophia and Gabriel danced to a song Elena had loved, Gabriel's way of honoring his first wife while celebrating his new beginning, Sophia looked around at their guests. Her parents were deep in conversation with Gabriel's aunt, switching between English and Spanish as they compared stories about their children. Maria Santos was showing Diego something on her phone, probably photos from her recent academic presentation. Marcus and Carmen were dancing nearby, Marcus spinning Carmen with the kind of joy that came from unexpected love found later in life. "What are you thinking about?" Gabriel asked, pulling Sophia closer. "How many people had to make brave choices for us to end up here?" Sophia said. "My parents leaving everything they knew to come to America. Helena writing you that letter. You deciding to come to Portland, me deciding to trust you again. Diego deciding to investigate Victoria Ashworth's other victims," Gabriel added. "Marcus hiding Elena's letter until you were ready to read it. You deciding to start the foundation instead of staying safe in your practice." Sophia laughed. "We're a collection of other people's courage, aren't we? Maybe. Or maybe we just learned how to be brave together." As the evening wore on, guests shared stories and toasts. Marcus spoke about watching Gabriel come back to life. Carmen told the story of how the Phoenix Foundation had helped her cousin after a stalking incident. Sophia's father, who'd rarely spoken publicly since arriving in America, stood up and said simply, "My daughter chose well." Later, as they cleaned up the garden with help from their friends, Sophia found a quiet moment to sit by the fountain. Gabriel joined her, both of them still in their wedding clothes but barefoot now, shoes abandoned hours ago. "Any regrets?" Gabriel asked. Sophia considered the question seriously. "About the wedding? About us? About the path that brought us here? Any of it. All of it." Sophia thought about the pain of their separation, the fear and humiliation of Victoria's attack, the lonely nights in Portland, when she'd wondered if she'd made the right choice leaving New York. "No," she said finally. "No regrets. Even the hard parts were necessary. They made us who we needed to be for each other." Gabriel nodded. Elena used to say that some people are meant to find each other, but they have to become themselves first before they can recognize each other. Smart woman, she would have liked you. The real you, not the version of you I fell in love with when I was still half asleep with grief. Sophia leaned against Gabriel's shoulder. I like the version of me that loves the real you, the one who's learned the difference between helping and controlling, the one who moved across the country not to save me, but to build a life with me. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the fountain and the distant sounds of their friends finishing the cleanup inside. So what now? Sophia asked. We're married. The foundation is thriving. Your company is doing well. What's next for us? Gabriel smiled. I was thinking we could start with a honeymoon, then come back and keep doing what we're doing, building something meaningful together. Sounds perfect, simple and complicated at the same time. The best things usually are. As they finally headed inside to change out of their wedding clothes, Sophia caught her reflection in the foundation's front window. She looked happy, truly happy, in a way that had nothing to do with any single person or achievement, and everything to do with becoming fully herself. 5 years ago, she'd been a waitress carrying champagne to people who barely saw her. Tonight, she was Dr. Sophia Sterling, co-founder of an organization that had changed hundreds of lives, married to a man who loved her, not in spite of her strength, but because of it. The scared girl from El Salvador was still part of her, but so was the struggling student, the trauma survivor, the woman who'd walked away from love to protect her family, and the leader who'd turned her pain into purpose. All of those versions of herself had been necessary to become the woman she was now. Ready to go home, Mrs. Sterling? Gabriel asked, offering her his hand. Sophia took it, feeling the new weight of her wedding ring. Ready, Mr. Sterling. As they walked toward their car, Sophia thought about all the women who would come to the Phoenix Foundation in the years ahead, looking for help rebuilding their lives after trauma. She thought about the couples who would struggle to love each other across differences in background and experience. She thought about all the people who would have to choose between safety and love, between independence and partnership, between the lives they'd planned and the lives they were called to live. She and Gabriel had chosen love, complicated, imperfect, requires constant work love, the kind of love that demanded they both become their best selves before they could fully give themselves to each other. It hadn't been easy. It probably never would be easy. But as they drove through Portland toward the home they'd built together, Sophia knew with absolute certainty that it had been worth every difficult choice, every moment of fear, every act of courage it had taken to get here. Some love stories, she thought, were worth waiting for, worth fighting for, worth becoming yourself for. This was one of them.